Welcome, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So we are, as you can see, today we're going to work on Torah Temiah. We're in Parshat vaYera, and right at the very beginning of vaYera, and we're talking about Abraham sitting at the entrance of his tent. The previous chapter 17 dealt with his circumcision, and here we are in verse 2, where he lifts up his eyes. Vayar he saw v'hine shlosha anashim. He saw three men, nitzavim alav, standing before him. Let's go to the next thing. Vayar, and he saw. So it says, this is the second time, by the way. Vayarot likratam, and he ran towards them, ran to greet them, mipetach ha'ol, from the entrance of the tent, vayishtachu arza. And so the question is, yes, he bowed down to them on the ground. If you look at the Aramaic, v'sagid al ara, right? That would be third person singular. So even though the yishtachu, right, it doesn't say v'yishtachavu, but yishtachu would be just Abraham. He bowed down before them. Okay. By the way, this is totally just a total editorial comment. This Aramaic word sagid, which means to bow down. So the Arab word masjid means a mosque. It's a mosque. And so that word mosque is actually related to bowing down. In other words, the word mosque means the place of prostration. And that's because if you've ever watched Muslims at prayer, you'll see that they do a lot of prostrating as part of their actual act of worship. Please excuse me. I'm sorry. It just keeps doing that as far as, getting large and smaller. But here we go. So here is Torah Temiah on this. V'hine shlosha anashim, and behold, three men. Man ninhu shlosha anashim. So who exactly were? What do we mean by three men? Who were they? Man ninhu. Michael, Gabriel, Rephael, and Rephael. So these three men were actually angels, right? They were angel Michael, Gabriel, and Rephael. Why these three angels? Michael, Sheba levaser et Sarah. Michael came to announce to Sarah that she was going to have a child. Rephael, from the word lerapot, right, to heal, lerapot et Abraham, to heal Abraham from his circumcision. The Gabriel and Gabriel has to do with the mightiness. De Azal lemehapcha, who went to storm the city of Sodom, right, and the other cities of the plain, that they were going to be overturned and destroyed. So that's why these three particular angels, Torah Temiah. And despite the fact, dichtiv bistom, with regards to the city of Sodom, vayavo'u shnei hamalachim. So in the next chapter, after Abraham has finished providing hospitality from the three angels, it just talks about the two angels going on, or that the two angels went on towards Sodom. And we just said that Gabriel was the one who was there to destroy Sodom. So the question that Torah Temiah is bringing up is, why does it say two angels if only Gabriel was the one who was responsible for destroying Sodom? Why two angels? Achatam, because there, in this particular situation here, where it talks about the two angels, hakavana, the intention is, de azal Michael, that Michael went bahade de Gabriel, he went along with Gabriel to Gabriel, la'atzil et Lot, in order to rescue Lot. So Lot and his daughters and his wife were rescued miraculously from Sodom before it was actually destroyed. And the one who was responsible for that was Michael. V'ra'aya, right? And the proof of this, the behafecha, because regarding the overturning of the cities, ketiv ve'afchoch et ha'arim v'lo yahafchu. And the way we can prove that it was only Gabriel who did this is it says vayahapoch. he singular, oh, yehafech, right? I'm thinking that the point is it's singular. So in other words, the idea that Gabriel alone was the one who overturned the cities, the lo yehafchu, right? So the yehafech is it's not passive, right? And he overthrew the cities or overturned the cities, and it doesn't say they overturned the cities. The Tam Hadavar, and what's the reason in any case? Why just it's so important that it's just one to do one and another to do another, etc. The reason for this is Shelo Nimsero Kol Hashalosh Shlichut Lemalach Echad, because we have a principle. There's a very strong union amongst angels. They all are assigned just to one task, and one angel is not assigned to more than one task at a time. Okay, hu mishum, and here it is, because the ein malach echad or shtei shlichot, that because one angel does not perform two missions, that is to say, at the same time, because clearly we just read how Michael came on one mission to announce to Sarah that she was going to have a child, and another mission in order to rescue Lot, but it was at a different time. It wasn't the same at the same moment. All right. And we have to say, why wasn't it comfortable? Why wasn't he comfortable to explain at all the Elah Shlosha Anashim Hayu Anashim Mamash? In other words, why doesn't he feel that he could just interpret them? Why does he have to say that they're angels? Why didn't he just simply say that they were people? They were three men. That's what it says, right? V'lo malachim, and that they weren't angels. Pashut. So it's very clear, all right, or it's you might even say it's simple. Mishum de levasov. The reason he doesn't do that is in the end, ketiv vayavo shnei hamalachim snoma. It says as we continue these passages, it specifically says that the two angels arrived at Sodom, and that's why he can't simply interpret when it says anashim that it just simply means people. Well, which in a sense, it raises another question, which he's going to attempt to answer as well. Umehemshech lashon haparasha, and as the chapter continues, right, mevuar, it becomes clear the oto halashon, that this particular expression, musav v'holech al elahanashim, that in fact when it mentions the two angels, right, specifically as angels, we understand that it's referring to these people who came, these quote men quote who came to Abraham. It's clear. So it becomes very clear that these people, these three men, were angels. V'lo kashe. And it's not a problem, right? Mashem mechunim b'shem anashim. That these angels are referred to as men. It's not a problem. Why? Ki chen matzina, because we find shem ish, we find the term ish, the term man, b'toar lamalachim, as a description or referring to angels. We find it. Kamo Daniel, we find it, for example, in the book of Daniel, Tet, in chapter 9 of the book of Daniel, for Ish Gabriel, and there it specifically says, the man Gabriel, and we know that Gabriel is an angel, but he's referring to as an Ish. V'chein darshu, and likewise, v'yavek ish, that's the way we interpret where it says with Jacob wrestling with the angel. The Hebrew is v'yavek ish imo. It says a man wrestled with him. Malach Haya. And we say that in fact was an angel that was wrestling with Jacob. And there's mention to this. The reference is Midrash Rabbah, the Zohar, and the Zohar. And I believe in the Zohar, it's in the reference to the Parsha Bo, Mem Bet, right? Chapter 40, paragraph 2. And likewise, we know that, remember when Joseph was sent by his father, to see where his brothers were, it says, as he was going, a man met him, right? A man found him. And we say that this man was Gabriel. The tradition is that man here was Gabriel. Uve Zohar Mishpatim, and in the Zohar, in the commentary on Parshat Mishpatim in Book of Exodus, Tzadik Dalad. So it's chapter 94, 2. It says, Ish de Itmar Bashem. So it says there is sometimes, I believe is what it's saying, is that sometimes even this term Ish is said in reference to God, because there it says Adonai Ish Milchamo, right? In the Song of the Red Sea, it refers to God as a man of war. Ve'it ish v'ha'ish lavush habadim. And then there's also an ish that refers to the ish, where it says the man clothed in linen. And this is in Daniel chapter 12. It's the last chapter of Daniel. And it talks about these men, quote unquote, and this one man who's in heaven, and it's not talking about a man. It's not talking about a man, right? So it would appear that it's referring to God, as a matter of fact, in that chapter. Over Yerushalmi Yoma, and in the Yerushalmi, in the Talmud Yerushalmi, on Tractate Yoma, this is the tractate that deals with Yom Kippur, Perik Aleph, chapter 1, Halacha Hey, that it's subdivided, these chapters are divided into halachot, so Halacha 5. Here it says, V'chol Adam lo yeh ba'ohel moed, where it says in the Torah, right, in Leviticus, it says, "V'chol Adam lo yeh ba'ohel moed," that no Adam should be in the tent of meeting, and there in the commentary there is afilu malachim, we're including even angels cannot be in the tent of meeting on that day. The tam kinui zela malachim, and the reason for this description, right, for angels, Yitba'er, it becomes clear, became a piha katuv be'Yechezkel, referring to what is written in Ezekiel, Aleph, chapter 1, and it talks about these angels, these divine beings that Ezekiel sees in a vision. Udemut pneihem, and the resemblance of their faces, pnei Adam, were like the face of a man, Adam, of an Adam. Uva Midrash Rabbah, and in the Midrash Rabbah, Parshat Korach, that's discussing Parshat Korach. So this is Numbers Rabbah. Piresh, Perek Yotet, chapter 19. Gadol Kochan Shel Nevi'am. The prophets were very great, and I think in some ways it's saying they were very brave, right? They had much strength. Shemidamim demut gevura shalmala, because they compare the power, the upper powers, the celestial powers, the tzurat Adam, to the likeness of a human being, to the form of a human being. Shneemar, as it states, Va'ishma kol Adam midaber, as Ezekiel says, and I heard the voice of a man speaking. This is Ezekiel chapter 1. Ve'ein laharich, and Torah Temiah says there's no need to pursue this any further. He's made his point, and he doesn't need to go on any further in this particular vein. However, he has another direction he wants to go. Ve'yein b'midrash Rabbah kan, and check out the Midrash Rabbah here. In other words, in Parshat VaYera. Amar Rabbi Levi said, Echad nidmeh lo bidmut sidki or staki. So here he's referring to these three men. He says one of them appeared to him in the form of a bread seller, right? He's explaining mocher pat, one who sells bread, right? So in other words, somebody who like had a bakery, right? Who was selling the bread. Ve'echad mimut navati. By the way, you can see, right? One appeared to him like a sea captain, right? I felt like in some ways the word navigation was somehow related to this word, okay? But anyway, it could be totally wrong. But anyway, that one of these men appeared as a sea captain, and he explains Navati as manhig sfina, someone who is, or a navigator, right? Navigator. Manhig sfina, one who controlled a ship, a boat, Ve'echad minmut Aravi, and one of them like in the form of an Arab. So these are how they looked to Abraham. Adkan. This is the end of the quote. This is what Rabbi Levi said. However, in the verse itself, right, if we look at the scripture, it's not really clear where did he get this from? How did he come up with this idea? And one might say, Desamich kain al halashon. So he's basing it on the expression, Va'ekcha pat lechem, because Abraham says to them, I will take a loaf of bread. Instead of saying to them, I will give you some bread or a loaf of bread, he says, I will take a loaf of bread. Umirames, and so that sort of suggests she'amar im yesh lecha lechem ikne mincha, that he said to the one who appeared as a bread seller, right, that if you have bread, I will buy some from you. That's what he meant when he said, I will take some bread. In other words, I'll purchase some bread from you. Vahainu, and that is lefi shenidme lo kemocher pat, because one of those angels appeared to him as a bread seller. Umidamar achar ta'avoru, and then he goes on, Abraham later on says, and afterwards ta'avoru, he says, you shall pass on. Velo telechu, and he doesn't use the expression velo telechu, you will go in that way. You will pass, as opposed to you will go. Darish, and for that reason, he interprets Shedim Elo Kemanhig Svinot, that the second one appeared as one who was a captain of a ship, right, or someone who controlled boats. Yeah, and why? Shilashon ha'avara, because again, this expression ha'avara, passage, Ragil biyoter, it's more commonly used, but ovrim alamayim, about regarding someone who is going across water. Here we go, some examples. Vayavru betoch hayam, right? There's that vayavru, right? They passed through in the midst of the sea, from the Shirat Hayam. Vayavor et hayarden, right? And he went over, he crossed the Jordan. Umizeh, and from this, Yesod Halashon, the basic expression, Me'ever lahayardain. So this is the origin of talking about Me'ever, on the other side of the Jordan, right? But there's the idea of water, passing through water. Umida amar rachatzu raglechem, and a third one, because he said to them, and wash your legs or your feet, darish, that from there we can infer, shenidmu lo, that they appeared to him, ka'arviim, like Arabs, shekain min hagam, because this was apparently the practice of Arabs to wash their feet when they came into a home. And that's it. All right, so that's on that particular issue. Any questions? Otherwise, I will plunge on to the next one. Okay. So I will tell you that I have a question. And my question is, so what was the significance, right, of there's three very, very different, actions, what these people are doing. Three very different people, right? A bread seller, a captain, you might say, right? And an Arab. What, in fact, is the underlying thought there about because Rabbi Levi said these things? Yes, I mean, the derivation is good. I can follow very well what Torah Temiah is saying in terms of the language and why Rabbi Levi was able to come up with this. But to me, it still begs a question, and I don't have an answer. Why these particular three careers, you might say, right? Or types. And I'll have to give that more thought and see if I can come up with some decent answer to that. But if you have an idea, let me know. All right, let's go on. Okay, we need to go back up here to here. Nitzavim alav, standing before him. Shlosha, so he says, Shlosha shayu melchin baderech. If three people are going on the way, if they're traveling together on the way, Harav be'emtza, that is to say, the most important one has to be in the middle of the three. Gadol b'mino, one who is next in greatness is on his right hand. Ve'katan bismolo, and the one of the least greatness is on his left hand side. So that's how they have to walk if they're going along the way. V'chein matzinu b'shlosha malachim sheba'u l'Avraham. And we find this example in the three angels who came to Abraham. Michael ba'emtza, Michael was in the middle. Gabriel limino, Gabriel was on his right side. Or Rephael lismolo, and Rephael on his left side. So at least, there's also that implication that Michael, in what he had to do in announcing the birth of Isaac to Sarah, that miraculous birth, and also in rescuing Lot and his family, was considered the most powerful of the angels. Gabriel overturning the city of Sodom, Raphael coming to heal, all involving, in a sense, on a certain level of miraculous behavior. But in terms of the significance, looking and seeing if there's any sort of order to it. Okay. And this is in Yoma, page 37. And let's take a look, and probably on the Aleph side of the page. So where are we here? I think right there. Mi dichtiv shlosha anashim nitzavim alav. The reason for this drush is it says 3 men standing before him. Michlal, that implies shebishura achat havu kaime. That would suggest that the 3 of them were standing in front of him in one line, ze etzel ze, one next to the other, that they appeared to him as 3 people, the ze achar ze, because if they came up, one in front of the other, halo ein nitzavim, we could not say that they were all standing before him. In that sense, using this word nitzav, Ella Rishon, only the first one would have been nitzav. In other words, standing right in front of him. So this word nitzav, we can translate as nitzav, meaning stand, but it means to stand right in front of someone. Okay? And this may be a good place to stop for, well, maybe we got another one. This doesn't look like such a long one here, although I see. Okay. All right. Vayar, it says, Abraham saw Vayarots, and he ran. Mahu Vayar Vayarots. What's the whole implication of saying he saw and he ran? Okay, let's take a look at what he says here. Ritzono Lamar, the point that he's trying to make here is, Lama Kativ Shte Pa'amim Vayar Vayar, because we look at the sense. As I mentioned earlier on when we were doing the sentence, it says Vayar, it says he saw, and then it says he saw. I mean, how many times do you have to say he saw these men, right? He saw them standing in front of him. V'gam lama ratz acharehem. And then again, the question is, why would he have run after them? So that's the point here. Let's go back here now. All right. Me'ikara, originally, atu kamu alav, I guess it would be, or aleihem, right? So originally, when they came, kamu alei, they were standing in front of him. They stood in front of him. Ki chaziyuhu dehavai leitzar. But when these angels, these 3 men, saw that he was in pain, Amru, they said, Lav orach ara lemekam hacha. It's not appropriate to be here in this way, right? He's going through pain. We shouldn't be here. For azlu laho, and so they left. Rahit batrahu, and so he ran after them because they were leaving him. They felt it was inappropriate since he was recovering from his milah, from his circumcision, and he was showing evidence of being in pain, that was appropriate for them to be there. Although that still leaves a little question, which of course Torah Temiah is going to in fact address. Okay. So let's keep going. Verotzono lomar, and the whole point going on here is mikodem ra'a otam nisavim alav, that first of all, ra'a, right, vayar, he saw them standing before him. V'achar and then afterwards ra'a, here we need a second time he saw, otam, he saw them, porshim mimenu, they were leaving him. Vayarot katam, and so consequently he ran to greet them. V'lachen kativ, and for this reason, kativ vayar vayar, and that's why it says vayar twice, leramez al shtei ra'ayot, to allude to the two sightings, miyuchadot, two separate sightings, v'nir'u nir'eh, and it would appear, the inyan hatzar, that regarding the pain that he was experiencing, haya, it was, shahaya kosher umatir, it looks like chatilei hamilah, that what he was doing was he was trying to adjust the bandages for his circumcision, right? V'ukamo b'drasha b'shibas samuch, and we're going to see in an interpretation that's coming up, chazye, right? They saw the asir v'sharei. So there it's going to say they saw that he was tying and untying these bandages. V'haya bosh atzmo me'anashim zarim, and it would have been uncomfortable for him, embarrassing for him, from people who were not part of the family to see him doing this. V'al zeh shayach, and for this it makes sense. Ma she'amru, what they said to each other, lav orach ara lemekam hacha. It's not appropriate for us to be here right now. Aval im hakavana stam tsar, because if all it meant was that he was experiencing pain, right? That was all it meant. Lo shayach lav orach ara. It doesn't make sense. Okay, to say it's inappropriate for us to be here. If you see someone in pain, you don't leave them. You try and stand by them and give them encouragement and try to give them comfort. So that's why we're saying it specifically refers to the adjusting of the bandages regarding the operation that he had. And this is where we will end today. So I'm going to just make the marking so we know where to start. And God willing, we'll go on with this very soon. Okay. All right. Any questions before for the record? Yeah, Harlan.
I was wondering about not changing the subject, but about the Jubilee.
Yes, that's going back to last week's parsha. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering on the when a person loses his money and everything and becomes a servant of the next person, on he's a servant for 7 years, and then he becomes free.
So
then on the Jubilee, he becomes free again. I mean,
okay. So those are two different circumstances. Okay. The case of the Jubilee is somebody who is impoverished to a point where they have to sell themselves in order to be able to afford their living. Okay. And that would apply to the Jubilee. All right. On the other hand, the other case that we're talking about, the 7 years, is someone who is sold by the court in order to pay for a theft that he may have committed, and in which case, it's the amount of the theft has to be equivalent to service for 6 years. And then if he doesn't want to, if he's very happy in that situation, he can choose to remain in service, and then he has to go out by the Jubilee year. So there are two different circumstances there. Okay? All right.
Another thing about the houses. If you're in a walled city, a city that's walled, you have to, if you want to claim your house again, you do it in 1 year.
Right.
I can't understand that, because in a Jubilee, you get your house back anyway.
No, only on the fields. That's the point, that it doesn't go back in the Jubilee year if it's in a walled city.
Oh, well, then the unwalled city, you can do that.
It'll go back in the Jubilee year. So the year you have to buy it back applies to houses in walled cities.
And they
That's
give you 1 year to do it.
correct.
And the ones that aren't in Wall City, it doesn't make any difference. You can,
No, it doesn't. It goes back because it's part of their territory. It's part of their allotment of land. Okay. And the
what
other
about,
thing, Harlan, you don't want to go back on deals all the time. So that's why in that particular circumstance, you have a year in which to retract.
huh?
But
Uh,
beyond that, you can't. You've got to make up your mind in a year. You can't sell your home to someone and have them buy you a home, and then after 5 years, you tell them, "No, I want my home back." There has to be some stability here. Okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Judith?
Hi, I got here a little late, so I may have missed this, but I know Shmal Hamitah has four angels,
Yeah.
and are angels or an interpretation of calling them angels in the Torah or in Mishnah or Gemara?
Okay.
When does yeah?
Okay, so the names of the angels, they are mentioned certainly in later books. They're not mentioned in the five books. The reference to angels in general, yes, but giving the angels names is something that happens later in the Bible, and I'm not sure if it doesn't even occur like in later on in the exilic books, in the post-exilic books, like without any question, in Daniel, it's there. As to the other books, I just don't know myself. I'd have to look it up. Okay. But
Eh,
certainly they are referred to as angels. Angels are referred. In fact, we have remember Bilam and the angel that stands in his way, right? We have that.
Yeah.
So we definitely have, but not
Oh,
necessarily
and
name.
Malach,
Yeah.
Malachim,
Right. Yes,
but
exactly.
but I talk to people who are Bible Christians,
Yes.
and they keep talking about angelology, and it's
Okay.
like, I didn't learn that Judaism has all this.
Yeah.
That just, when should I have learned that?
Oh, I'm laughing because there's so much that it would have been wonderful if we'd learned as young children, in terms of so many elements of Judaism. I guess, if you had Bible study, serious Bible study, you would definitely come across them eventually. Uh, I will tell you that I don't know this for certain. It seems like I had read this somewhere that in Islam there are a tremendous number of angels, even more than in Christianity. But to my mind, in thinking about it, it occurred to me that the whole idea of angels is an attempt to describe, in some ways, the way an ineffable, transcendent creator can relate to this empirical experience of ours. That it's a way of trying to bridge that gap. So it's a use of language in a particular way.
Doesn't Rabbi? Doesn't the angels have a certain thing to do? Each one
Yes.
has a thing to do.
It,
One of the angels, if it went for one of the angels, they warned Lot to get out of the
yes,
area.
that was Michael, according to what we read today. Yes. And the other thing, Judith, is that they do not have a will of their own. They must do whatever it is that God wants them to do. So they
Oh,
are, as I
right.
said, so in that sense, they are an extension of divine will. And I think the use of the term angel is a way of trying to take divine will, which is somewhat abstract, and give it an empirical element to it. That's why I think we have this concept called angels.
We
And
have angels today, Rabbi.
yeah, we do. We
We
do.
do. Oh.
Absolutely. Maybe one of them is you, Harlan. No, you could say that, by the way, that in terms of trying to perform mitzvot, which are supposed to be an expression of divine will, that to whatever extent we try to actually align our own lives with the divine will, you could say it's a course in becoming an angel. That
Oh.
that what we're trying to do is actually become angels. on that kind of level. I am going to stop the recording at this point.